Hello everyone, this is Antony Carpen here, and I'm in the gardens of Rock Road Library, which is my local library, and the volunteers here, the Friends of Rock Road Library, have done a splendid job actually of turning the gardens into something very, very, very nice. I'll just give you a quick look around just to show you what they've done. And you might have noticed actually that I'm filming this on a mobile phone using a selfie stick. I managed to get hold of a selfie stick from my local co-op for a fiver, amongst other things because I wanted to try out some filming again using mobile phones, but seeing if I could get some more interesting camera angles. It's a lot harder than it actually looks. I tried it with some local fauna, if I can put it that way, actually ducks and ducklings, on Jesus Green, and I just wanted to see if I could film the little ducklings swimming around at a much more close-up level as far as the camera was concerned, but with me at some distance away. But again, one of the things the camera struggled with in particular was the light on that day. That was just before the Strawberry Fair actually, which by all the looks of things went down really, really well. I was there for a couple of hours doing some filming and photography there. One of the things that struck me actually, because I had a number of friends who were on the organising list of volunteers and who were stewarding at the events, was there was a noticeable increase in the number of groups and tents and stands that were campaigning on one thing or another. It was noticeable the amount of dissent in terms of local and national issues was much more prominent than I've seen in previous years, which is certainly something for those of us who are into campaigning for local democracy in and around Cambridge to give some thought to. Anyway, talking about all things democracy, I was at an e-referendum hustings last night, chaired by Lord Wilson, the former Cabinet Secretary, at St Columba's Church Halls, which many moons ago I used to do ballroom dancing lessons in. So it's kind of surreal being back in that hall. We had scientist and pathologist Dr. Rupert Beale, who's from Addenbrooke's and the University of Cambridge, who was on the panel, arguing the case for remaining in from a science perspective, sat next to Nick Clark, the former Conservative leader of Cambridgeshire County Council and now of Cambridge UKIP, arguing the case out. And we also had Vicky Ford, MEP, arguing the case for remaining in, also from the Conservatives. And next to her, her Conservative colleague, but Brexiter, Councillor Tom Hunt of East Cambridgeshire District Councils, and also one of the youngest councillors that we have certainly in the county. It's noticeable that although we've got a number of young councillors on Cambridge City Council, we don't have any Conservative councillors on the council following the defeat of Councillor Chapour, who lost his seat in Trumpington at the most recent elections to Donald Adey of the Liberal Democrats, who stood against Puffles of the Dragon Fairy in 2014 in the Coleridge ward. So again, interesting to see how councillors and candidates move around. So, but what was interesting about this debate, about the debate last night, was how the audience challenged the panel from perhaps a worldview that nobody had expected, and certainly I hadn't expected. Because second question in, the audience was saying that the panel hadn't acknowledged really where the audience was coming from, and saying, look, it's a predominantly Christian audience, being at St Columba's, at a church hall. And they were saying, well, actually, we're not interested in the arguments the media have made about, immigration and the economy that have just dominated everything, along with the colourful use of statistics, if I can put it that way, or colourful use of what will or will not happen. Nobody's consulted an astrologer, by the way. And they were saying, well, what about the common good? What about what impact is Brexit going to have, or staying in going to have, on people from low-income backgrounds? What's it going to have impact-wise on the economically deprived parts of the UK, or even the economically deprived parts of the European Union? And again, it's something that I think all four of the panellists found challenging, perhaps because they hadn't really thought about the issues, or perhaps they hadn't been in front of audiences where those sorts of questions were put to them. And it reminds me of an event I was at 2 or 3 years ago on food security, and it was at the United Reformed Church on Emmanuel Street. Professor Sir Brian Heap was in the chair, which goes to show actually that one of the things we're very fortunate to have in Cambridge is just this wealth of very highly regarded, very highly qualified, very experienced people who are organising and chairing these events, but perhaps don't get nearly as much publicity as they could or should do. And he was able to pull in a number of senior managers and executives from the food industry, and they had a very, very big debate with parishioners from Emmanuel United Reformed Church and members of the public about food security issues, both local, national and international. And the food executives got an absolute grilling, and it was a pleasure to see, because although in our local democracy bubble we like to think that, you know, we've got all angles covered, we clearly haven't. And here were a group of people who, as they said themselves, were moved predominantly by their faith beliefs, but also at the same time were prepared to do the detailed research necessary to absolutely skewer the people that were sitting in front of them. And from my perspective, it was actually a delight to see, which makes me think, again, with all things local democracy, the importance of just diversifying the people and the backgrounds who get involved in it, because, again, when you get people coming from worldviews that either you haven't considered or perhaps even don't even know about, it forces those in power and those who are the decision makers to really think about the decisions that they're taking, or force them to justify, perhaps in a way that they haven't had to do in the past, the decisions that they're taking. Because I know I'm in a dragon fairy shaped box when it comes to all things local gov, but when it comes to people who perhaps haven't been involved in it, and it's one of the reasons why I want to get more people from different backgrounds involved in it, it's much more challenging for those in power, while at the same time I hope it can diversify the talent pool of people who then choose to stand for election. Anyway, that's me over and done with, because my legs are absolutely frying up here in the beautiful warm sunshine. So I shall leave it there and see you soon. Bye bye.